I'm going to be reading from A Touch of Steel. It is the third book of the Gambler's Daughter series, and it's a trilogy, so it's the final book. Readers met Mr. Steele in the first book, and I have to confess, I had a scene in there in the very beginning that when the Avon assistant editors were coming to look for a front cut piece to promote the book, they pulled him out, and I was like, well, no, wait a minute. He's not the hero of the book. He's not the hero of the book. But he was a humdinger of a character, I'm going to tell you. So I was kind of excited. So then I put him into the second book. He makes an appearance, and finally he gets his own book with the last daughter. Her name is Gwendolyn, and his name is Beckett Steele. He makes a living out of finding the things people want found. You know, an errant son that's run off with the family money and is trying to gamble it away. He brings them back. Eloping daughters, discovering where jewelry has disappeared that's been stolen, that sort of thing. So that's kind of what he does. He's known for solving whatever problems you want solved without anyone knowing. But in this book, he's going to solve a great mystery in his own life. And it's the mystery of who is his father? Why is his father turned away from him? So, and who's his mother? But in order to do it, he has to work with Gwendolyn. The person that's going to let him get close to his father loves to play whist. And she said that if you can find a whist partner who will beat everyone else, then I will take you towards where the Marquess Middlebury is. And I'm going to start at the beginning of the scene where Gwendolyn has just met Lady Orpington, has played whist with her, just impressed the socks off the old broad. And so the Lady Orpington says, we got a deal. Let's go, Mr. Steele. But one of the problems is there's always been an attraction between Gwendolyn and Mr. Steele. And Gwendolyn, the moment she laid eyes on him, everything in her body said, this is the one. So even though she's been on the marriage market, her imagination belongs to Mr. Steele. He is the man she wants. So let me jump into this. Like I said, they've just gotten the approval from Lady Orpington. They're at her house. And Beck was surprised by the number of footmen who all of a sudden appeared stationed along the hallway in her path. They hadn't been there when he'd arrived. And he didn't like the way their gazes followed Gwendolyn's tall, refined figure as she passed them. He was certain they noticed the way her hips moved with a gentle sway and imagined exactly how long her legs were. For her part, she seemed oblivious to the hearts she was conquering. At one point, she smiled in the direction of a footman. The man's face flushed red. Beck understood. Gwendolyn had that effect on every male of her acquaintance, including himself. There were times when she shot him a look of complete hero worship. She romanticized him, and if he wasn't careful, he would see himself through her eyes. He would forget exactly who he was. He was a loner. He didn't need entanglements. He liked his life the way it was. Besides, he brutally reminded himself, Gwendolyn could do much better than him. She deserved better. His job was to see that no ill befell her. She was doing him a great favor, and he was determined to keep her safe. Middlebury hadn't sent his man Winstead to coddle Beck, but to kill him. That was why the conversation he was about to have with her was critical, and he didn't anticipate her being happy about it. Downstairs, a footman held her bonnet. Gwendolyn took the hat and tied the crisp ribbons under her chin at a fetching angle. The ribbons matched the blue of her dress and made her golden brown eyes stand out even more. For his disguise, Beck had given up his preferred wide-brimmed hat for a curl-brimmed beaver that all the gentlemen wore. He tipped it low over his eyes and offered Gwendolyn his arm. She rested her gloved hand lightly on his sleeve, and they went out the front door. Lady Orpington's coach waited for them. A footman jumped down from the rumble, the seat at the rear of the coach, to place a small step by the coach door. She held Beck's hand as she climbed in, and there was something about her grace, her presence, that made him feel ridiculously gallant. Drive until I tell you differently, he instructed the coachman. He removed his hat and climbed into the coach. He took the seat opposite hers, his back to the driver, and set the hat beside him. The footman closed the door. Beck pulled down the shades to protect them from prying eyes. Gwendolyn watched his every movement, her hands folded in her lap. He sat back against the seat, and that's when he noticed how close the space was. Or did it feel close because he was with her? He couldn't name the scent she wore, but it reminded him of summer, of wildflowers and sparkling streams. She wasn't fair-haired and blue-eyed like her sisters. However, he liked Gwendolyn's dark looks, her heavy, glossy hair that was as black as a raven's wing, and her startling golden eyes that seemed to look right into the heart of him. The tightening in his loins, that damnable need that roiled a man's blood, assured him that the sooner he set her against him, the better. Beck knocked on the roof, a signal for the driver to leave. The coachman shouted, "Ha!" and they began to move. "What is going on?" Gwendolyn started, as if she could contain herself no longer, but Beck held up a gloved hand. She must still wait. Gwendolyn sat back, a small line furrowing her brow, her pressed lips a sign of impatience, and then she wet them. The sight of the tip of her tongue caught and held him. Dear God! She had no idea of her impact upon men, and it made her all the more enticing. "I am not who you believe I am," he said abruptly, the opening to his planned speech, warning her not to expect anything from him, especially if it involved her heart. Before he could launch into his planned admonishments, she interrupted him with mock dismay. "Oh, are you telling me you aren't Mr. Curran?" "Miss Lanscar," he said in warning. "Mr. Steele," she replied in the same formidable tone. "I'm attempting a serious discussion." "As am I. You wish to be Mr. Curran? Very well." "Yes, Mr. Curran? What do you need to tell me?" "Oh, you aren't the man I believe you to be? Well, that makes sense, because I know you as Mr. Steele. Does Lady Orpington know?" "Of course she does," he snapped. "She hired me to find you, and she knows I'm not her nephew." "And in return for you finding her a whist partner she likes, she owes you a favor. You ask that she pretend you are her nephew. I'm correct, aren't I? I'm assuming you're doing this to go to Colmore. Why? What is your game?" His intention had been to inform her that he was not someone she should focus her hopes on. He was not heroic. He didn't deserve her longing looks or wetting her lips in that innocently seductive way of hers. He was not a man like Jim, who wanted a wife, a hearth, and a cluster of children. Unfortunately, Gwendolyn had seized control of the conversation. She was also justified in asking questions. He would do the same in her position. At his silence, Gwendolyn waved a hand as if to wake him up. "What is the ploy, the scheme? What are we about to do?" "You act as if I want you to help rob the post. Do you?" she asked, her eyes lighting up as if she would be game. God helping. With great deliberateness, he said, "Miss Lanscar, curb your imagination. You will be a guest at Colmore. You will be Lady Orpington's whist partner. You play cards and nothing else." "Do you want me to win?" "Lady Orpington does." She considered that a moment and then pressed, "But what do you want me to do?" The thought hit him. To let me kiss you, to fall into my arms and let me make love to— He could have smacked himself in the head for his errant thoughts. They had just popped up without encouragement. Well, the tilt of her head as she looked up at him under dark lashes had encouraged them, and her asking him what he wanted her to do, such an innocent question that every male part of him had come to life upon hearing it. "Is something the matter, Mr. Steele? You seem unsettled. How may I help?" Another question with a lewd undertone, except to her. She was looking at him as if she was a green recruit, and this was the first day of training, and that made him feel even more awkward. He hid behind sternness. "By playing cards," he responded. "That is all I ask of you." He said the last as a reminder to himself. especially since the rolling of the coach over London's cobbled streets brought her knee repeatedly in contact with his knee. It was not intentional, but then it apparently didn't need to be for him to hear the double entendre in her replies. She stepped forward, the peak of her bonnet almost brushing the roof of the coach. "Then ask more of me," she said. And there was another one. Did she realize what she was saying? The very male part of Beck roared to life with desire. Instead, he shifted his weight, moving his knee as far as he could from bumping hers, and masked his reaction. Gwendolyn frowned, as if she thought him behaving strangely, and that only added insult to all of it. She apparently was not affected by his presence, while he hadn't been so rattled since he'd first discovered there was a difference between men and women. His intended lecture about not expecting anything other than a working relationship now seemed egotistical on his part. He was the one having the problem. Gwendolyn Lanskar seemed unbothered by his close proximity. Well, to the devil with all of this. He started to reach up and tap on the roof, a signal to the driver to take Gwendolyn home, but she grabbed his arm, pulling it down. Her boldness and the contact surprised him. Even through the layers of his jacket sleeve and shirt, sparks shot through him. "You cannot return me home yet," she informed him. "I will not partner with Lady Orpington until I know what is happening. There is more to this than a whist game." The sparks died. Few challenged Beck. He did not like it. His equilibrium returned. "You owe me a favor, Miss Lanskar." Her chin came up at the finality in his voice. "I'm willing to pay it, but I would be a fool to involve myself in something I didn't understand. Why can't you go to Colmore as yourself? What is the scheme?" "The less you know, the better." Of course that didn't appease Gwendolyn Lanskar. "I doubt that, Mr. Steele, and if you wish me to keep your true identity hidden from the Marquess and Marchioness of Middlebury, I believe I'm owed an explanation." "You wouldn't betray me." "Is that a chance you wish to take?" "I shall find another card player," he said. "By next week?" She shook her head. "That isn't possible. Not now that someone as stubborn as Lady Orpington has given me her approval. Besides," she continued, as if her hand was being forced, "I can send a letter to Colmore. Let them know you are planning some sort of subterfuge." Beck's temper ignited. "Don't test me, Miss Lanskar." Why was he always attracted to the wrong woman? "Then you must explain yourself, sir. I have a right to know why you are impersonating someone else." She spoke reasonably, and that made her words all the more infuriating. And it didn't help that he actually did need her. Desire was one thing. Being in a position where he had no other recourse was another. In truth, he'd brought in several partners for Lady Orpington. They'd been mostly men with minor titles, the sort Lady Orpington had thought she wanted. But Beck had known Gwendolyn would be the one. She had the talent for cards and the aristocratic bearing to fit in with the Middlebury set. She would make Lady Orpington look good. More important, she would deflect attention from himself and his purpose at Colmore. "I'm attempting to protect you," he said tightly. "So you keep telling me." Well, then, he would give her the truth, all of it. He would make her retreat in distaste, and then he'd never have to worry about her being infatuated with him. "I am the bastard son of the Marquess of Middlebury. My mother is some nameless whore." He paused, giving her a moment to react, expecting her to recoil in delicate horror. But he misjudged her once again. Instead, she plunged into questions. "Does the Marquess know you are his son? Is that why you're pretending to be someone else?" "He knows of me, but he doesn't know me. We have never met." "Oh, this seems a strange way to introduce yourself." "I'm not introducing myself. I don't want him to know my true identity." She didn't need to know about Olin Winstead's attack, a sign that someone at Colmore would go to great lengths to stop him. As for her safety, he would protect her. She changed the subject. "You speak well for a whore's son," she observed, as if it was important to their conversation. I'm not uneducated. How did you become educated? He made an impatient sound. Middlebury paid for my schooling and purchased my commission. All that money, and he doesn't know who you are? He doesn't wish to. There. Curiosity satisfied? Not completely. You were in the military? Of course. That explains much about you. No wonder you do not enjoy being challenged. Does any man? Does any person? His frustration overcame his command of the situation. Gwendolyn, you try my patience. I find you somewhat challenging as well, she replied without heat. And then there was a quick smile. I also like the way you say my given name. You linger on the first syllable. Only then did he realize he'd taken the liberty of her name, the name he used when he thought of her. Not on purpose, he answered, but because you can be exasperating. Miss Lanscar, I should not have forgotten myself. Please forgive me. Phillips formed a pout. We are back to formalities. I give you permission to use my name if you wish. I do not wish. I was improper. I beg your pardon. No pardon needed, she assured him. What he anticipated to be a 3-minute conversation of him telling her not to form an attachment for him had turned into her talking circles around him. Miss Lanscar, do not allow me liberties. She started, and he rolled right over her, cutting off whatever she was about to say. She needed to see sense. I spent my childhood in a brothel. I lived among whores. There, he'd said it. He wasn't just the son of a whore. He'd lived that life. It was his shame, his secret. Not even Wagner knew about his mother or any of the circumstances of Beck's parentage. Fortunately, it wasn't a conversation that came up amongst men of war. Except there were those who knew, or so he suspected. The murkiness of his past had been one of the reasons he believed General Danvers had frowned upon his suit for Violet's hand. There was something unsettling about a boy raised without family or ties. Any caring father would be wary of him. Except Gwendolyn didn't shudder with horror. Instead, she interrogated him. You lived in a brothel until, what? You said you went to school. Beck threw himself into the corner of the couch and crossed his arms against his chest. He no longer cared that his leg brushed hers or that she smelled of clover and daisies. No, right now, she was maddening, and he knew she had bested him. She'd not rest until she was satisfied. You want the whole story. I expect it. So be it, he ground out. When I was around 5 or 6, maybe 7. You don't know your age? No. Didn't your mother tell you? I don't know my mother. That was a terrible thing to confess, except Gwendolyn nodded as if it made sense. I don't know when I was born, he reiterated, as if she didn't completely understand. Whores don't keep careful records. I suppose some do. Beck scowled. Mine didn't. I don't even know who she was. I never knew her. How did you survive? You were very young to be on your own. By doing what I was told and staying out of harm's way, something she would be wise to emulate. I worked in the scullery. I emptied chamber pots. I cleaned out ashes, the jobs a child would do. But you have no inkling of how you came to be there. He paused, considering, and realizing that he never truly thought deeply about how he had ended up at Madam's. I was young. I can't recall. But you didn't know whom your father was. Not until Middlebury's men came to see Madam. She was the bawd who owned the house. The next thing I knew, I was yanked out of the only home I'd known and sent to Faircote, a school up north. I've heard of it. Wonders never cease, he said, and answer you except without another question. A hint of a smile came to her eyes, as if she enjoyed his sarcasm, and even this conversation between them. He realized he didn't mind it at all that much himself. He preferred keeping his affairs private, but he knew Gwendolyn would push until she knew all. Besides, she hadn't flinched over learning his parentage, and he had to admit he was impressed and a bit grateful. Therefore, he continued, I wasn't even to know I was Middlebury's until Madame made a comment about it. She gave up the secret, and she shouldn't have. Middlebury's man struck her so hard she fell to the floor. Up until then, she was the most powerful person in my life, he explained, wanting Gwendolyn to understand how shocking this was. She had a bodyguard named Derville who could snap the arm of anyone who created trouble at the house. Everyone was afraid of Madame. She was afraid of Winstead. That is Middlebury's man? Beck nodded. When he left me at Faircote, he said that if he ever heard Middlebury's name pass my lips, he would cut my tongue out. I believed him. But you have said his name freely just now. Because he's dead. I have no fear of him. How did he die? Beck wasn't about to confess he killed him. He kept silent. Gwendolyn waited, watching him as if she could stare him into answering. She couldn't. Finally, she gave a small huff of annoyance before asking, "You never met your father?" This he could answer, although he secretly enjoyed this small victory. Never. I lived at the school, stayed at the school, and then went off into the military. I didn't have a desire to meet him either. Because of what this Winstead said? I'm not fond of people who want to cut out my tongue. She seemed to actually consider this and then admitted, I wouldn't be either. Let's leave it there.